If you are tired of feeling like your mind never switches off, like every problem weighs too much, like every silence turns into inner noise, and like your peace always seems to depend on things you cannot control, then this video is for you. And I am not talking about ordinary tiredness. I am talking about that kind of exhaustion that does not show up in the body first. It shows up in the soul, in the way you wake up already feeling heavy, in the way you overthink before going to sleep, in the way a small frustration takes on enormous proportions inside your head, in the way you try to keep living normally, but deep down feel that something is always out of place. Maybe you keep functioning, you keep working, you keep replying, you keep smiling, you keep saying everything is fine, but deep down you know you're not at peace. And the worst part is that many times you cannot even explain exactly why. No great tragedy happened. There is no single central problem. There is not just one clear reason. There is accumulation, mental exhaustion, an excess of thoughts, a difficulty breathing inwardly, a constant feeling of being far from yourself. And this is exactly where many people get lost, because they begin to think inner peace is luck. That inner peace is for people with perfect lives. That inner peace is a luxury for people who do not have bills, conflict, pressure, fear, a past, anxiety, frustration, and responsibilities. But that is not true. Inner peace is not the absence of chaos. Inner peace is the ability not to let chaos command everything inside you. And that is why Stoicism remains so necessary, because it does not promise a life without pain. It teaches a more dignified, more lucid, and stronger way of moving through pain without losing yourself. So today, I want to show you 10 Stoic lessons to recover your inner peace. Not as pretty quotes, not as generic advice, not as a video to distract you for a few minutes and then disappear from your mind, but as a firm, alive, and deeply useful conversation for anyone who feels they need to return to their own center. And pay attention to this. At the end of this video, I am going to give you a bonus tip that may seem simple at first, but when applied the right way, it can deeply change how you move through difficult days. And maybe that is exactly the missing piece you needed to start recovering your peace in a real way, not just temporarily. So stay with me until the end, because this is not the kind of video to listen to halfway. This is the kind of video that can reorganize the way you think, feel, and react. Before we continue, write this in the comments. Today I choose to return to my center. Write that with intention, because many people are trying to organize life on the outside before returning to the only place where true reordering begins, their own mind. The first lesson is, stop fighting everything you cannot control. This is one of the greatest thieves of inner peace, because much of human anguish is born not only from what happens, it is born from inner resistance to what happens. You wanted the person to respond differently. They did not. You wanted the result to come faster. It did not. You wanted the past to be different, but it already happened. You wanted the future to be guaranteed, but it remains uncertain. You wanted life to obey your timing, your desire, your expectations, but life never signed that contract. And when the mind begins demanding that everything cooperate before it can breathe in peace, it becomes a slave to the world. Epictetus made this very clear when he divided life into two parts: what depends on us and what does not. It sounds simple, but it is transformative. Because while you spend emotional energy trying to control what does not depend on you, you weaken exactly the part of life where some real power still exists. You do not control everything that happens, but you do control your response. You do not control other people's opinions, but you do control how much you bend before them. You do not control every loss, but you do control the kind of person you continue to be after them. You do not control time, but you do control how you move through it. Peace begins to return when you stop making war against reality and start asking, what here still depends on me? That question brings you back to your axis, and a mind that returns to its own parts suffers less from helplessness and begins to breathe with more sobriety. The second lesson is, not every thought deserves to be believed. This is essential, because many people did not lose peace only because of what they lived through. They lost it because of the narrative they built from what they lived through. Something goes wrong and the mind says, nothing ever works out for me. Someone pulls away and the mind says, no one stays. A difficult season arrives and the mind says, my life is falling apart, and insecurity appears. and the mind says, I will not survive this. Do you see the problem? The wounded mind does not simply perceive, it dramatizes. It takes one fact and tries to turn it into a sentence. Marcus Aurelius understood this with astonishing depths. He knew that the quality of life depends greatly on the quality of the thoughts to which you give permanence. And this is not cheap positive thinking. It is inner vigilance. It is understanding that not every voice that rises inside your head deserves authority. Sometimes it is not intuition. It is fear. Sometimes it is not clarity. It is exhaustion. Sometimes it is not truth. It is anxiety in disguise. Sometimes it is not mature perception. It is just an old wound narrating the present. Recovering inner peace demands this silent courage to look at your own thoughts and not automatically kneel before them. A mind that is less gullible before its own chaos starts becoming lighter. The third lesson is, do not turn a season into identity. This lesson saves many people from remaining trapped for years in a suffering that should have been only a chapter. Because when you go through a hard period, there is a silent risk. You begin to define yourself by what you are going through. You are not tired. You become a failure. You are not confused. You become insufficient. You are not suffering. You become broken. You are not in a crisis. You become the crisis itself. And when that happens, the weight increases because it stops looking like a season and starts looking like a definition of who you are. Stoicism restores a very powerful clarity here. What happens to you may affect you, but it does not automatically gain the right to define you. A loss does not summarize you. A rejection does not translate your worth. A failure does not reveal your essence. A dark season does not become your final truth. You are not only who appeared on your worst day. You are not the fear you felt. You are not the confusion you lived through. You are not the pain you carried. There is a difference between moving through chaos and becoming chaos. And protecting that difference is a profound form of dignity. Peace begins to return when you stop narrating yourself from the wound and begin rebuilding yourself from awareness. The fourth lesson is, slow down inwardly. This may be one of the most urgent lessons for the modern world. Because today, almost everyone is moving too fast inside, too fast to react, too fast to conclude, too fast to get offended, too fast to fear, too fast to interpret, too fast to chase, too fast to give up. Anxiety wants speed. Anger wants speed too. Neediness wants speed too. Fear wants speed too. But peace almost always needs space. There are moments when the wisest move is not to respond. It is to wait, not to besiege. It is to breathe, not to chase. It is to observe, not to conclude. It is to let the dust settle. A great deal of unnecessary pain is born from inner haste, from the message sent too early, from the conversation started at the height of hurt, from the decision made on an emotionally cloudy day, from the rushed interpretation that later becomes regret. The person who lives in reaction never truly rests, and a mind that never rests cannot sustain peace. At best, it alternates between exhaustion and escape. If you want to recover your inner peace, you need to learn something. Not every urgency you feel is real. Sometimes it is only turbulence, and the person who learns not to obey the first emotional wave begins to build calm inside. The fifth lesson is, endure discomfort without running away from yourself. This point is huge because many times peace does not disappear only because of the problem. It disappears because the person develops the habit of running away from any inner discomfort, running toward distractions, running toward overstimulation, running toward empty relationships, running toward impulses, running toward validation, running toward anything that avoids an honest encounter with oneself. But every cheap escape becomes expensive later. You try to relieve yourself quickly, but you weaken yourself. You try to escape emptiness, but move even farther from yourself. You try not to feel, but prolong the suffering. You try to fill yourself with anything, but remain without center. Stoicism does not teach you to chase comfort all the time. It teaches you to endure discomfort with greater dignity. And that is not cruelty. It is strengthening. Sometimes peace does not return when you find a quick solution. Sometimes it returns when you stop running, when you endure your own truth a little longer, when you resist the impulse to go back to what harms you, when you do not chase emotional crumbs, just to avoid being alone. When you do not hand your conscience over to the first available relief, not every discomfort is an enemy. Some discomforts are processes. The person who cannot bear discomfort becomes a slave to any emotional urgency. The person who learns to hold it a little longer without abandoning themselves begins to build peace on solid ground. The sixth lesson is, take other people's opinions out of the center of your mind. This is a slow poison, and maybe that is why it is so dangerous. Many people live with their minds far too occupied by the gaze of others. They think too much about what others will think. They replay conversations to see whether they were interpreted correctly. They adjust their identity to fit someone else's expectations. They measure themselves by approval. They shrink because of comparison. They betray themselves in order to be accepted. It is impossible to have inner peace while living emotionally rented out to other people's opinions. Marcus Aurelius knew this. He understood that living while trying to control the minds of others is a form of slavery, because you never truly enter another person's conscience, and yet you still spend energy trying to appear right, flawless, admirable, sufficient. Peace begins to return when you understand that not every opinion deserves entry. Not every criticism deserves to live inside you. Not every misunderstanding needs to be resolved. Not every disapproval needs to become a wound. This is not arrogance. It is not contempt. It is not coldness. It is simply lucidity. Your identity cannot continue to remain in the hands of other people's judgment. A life guided by applause loses depth. A life guided by conscience gains peace. The seventh lesson is, protect the basics. This lesson seems too simple, but in difficult seasons, it becomes decisive. When inner peace disappears, many people abandon the basics, sleep badly, eat badly, immerse themselves in noise, live attached to distractions, lose contact with the body, lose contact with the present, and without noticing it, they begin feeding their own chaos even more. Stoicism does not live only through elevated reflections. It also respects small forms of order, making the bed, showering with presence, eating without rushing, walking a little, reducing excess noise, respecting sleep, reducing what intoxicates the mind. This may seem small for someone suffering deeply, but there are seasons in which peace begins to return precisely through this kind of faithfulness to the basics. When everything inside feels fragmented, small structures keep you from collapsing along with it. The strong person is not always the one who makes great revolutions. Very often, it is the one who does not abandon the minimum. And that is more powerful than it seems. The eighth lesson is, stop demanding a perfect life before allowing yourself to breathe. This is a very common mistake. The idea that peace will arrive when everything is solved, when money is in order, when the future is guaranteed, when the body is ideal, when the relationship is stable, when the answer arrives, when anxiety disappears, when nothing else hurts. But that day almost never comes. And the person who conditions peace on perfect circumstances condemns themselves to live always waiting. Stoicism does not teach you to wait for the ideal scenario. It teaches you to build some stability, even in the middle of imperfection, because life continues to be life. There will be noise. There will be failure. There will be delays. There will be loss. There will be doubt. There will be heavy days. There will be things out of place. If your peace depends on the total absence of friction, you will always be vulnerable. But if your peace begins to be born from a mind that is more sober, less demanding, less dramatic, then something new appears. Heiao, serenity. Not the serenity of fantasy. The serenity of someone who understood that the world may remain incomplete without the soul needing to live at war. The ninth lesson is, turn pain into understanding, not bitterness. Every pain leaves something behind. The question is, what will it leave in you? Will it leave hardness? Will it leave resentment? Will it leave cynicism? Will it leave distrust? Will it leave coldness? Or will it leave discernment, depth, sobriety, and maturity? Seneca understood this deeply. Suffering can deform or refine. It can close you or expand you. It can make you more bitter or wiser. There are people who suffer and harden so much that they can no longer love without defense, trust without fear, live without armor. There are people who suffer and precisely because of that begin to see more deeply, feel more truthfully, and choose more consciously. Pain does not need to be wasted. It can reveal where you are naive, where you are too dependent, where you were too attached, where you were looking outside for what needed to be built within. Inner peace does not mean never having been wounded. It means not allowing the wound to continue governing who you are becoming. The 10th lesson is, Return inward every day. And this is the great turning point, because recovering inner peace is not an event. It is a practice. It does not happen once and then stay. It does not arrive as a final enlightenment. It is not a magical moment that solves everything forever. It is return, repeated return, conscious return, daily return. Return inward when the mind fires up. Return inward when other people's opinions weigh heavily. Return inward when fear exaggerates the future. Return inward when neediness wants to drag you away. Return inward when pain wants to become identity. Return inward when life becomes too noisy. That return is the rebuilding of peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself as someone reorganizing his own soul again and again. That is deeply human. Even an emperor needed to do that. And maybe you need it too. Not to solve everything today, but to stop abandoning yourself every day. Now let me give you the bonus tip I promised at the beginning. The bonus tip is this: create a ritual of return. Do not wait until you are completely lost before trying to find yourself again. Have a concrete gesture that marks that return to yourself. It can be 5 minutes of silence. It can be a short walk without your phone. It can be writing 1 page a day. It can be breathing consciously before replying to someone. It can be repeating a phrase that brings you back to your axis. Something simple, but constante, because inner peace rarely returns as a spectacle. It returns as habit, as presence, as the repetition of small returns. And when you create that ritual, you teach your mind how to remember the road back home. Now, put it all together. Stop fighting everything you cannot control. Do not believe every thought. Do not turn a season into identity. Slow down inwardly. Endure discomfort without running from yourself. Take other people's opinions out of the center of your mind. Protect the basics. Stop demanding perfection before you breathe. Turn pain into understanding. Return inward every day and create a ritual of return. Do you see what that does? It does not eliminate all pain, but it cuts a great deal of useless suffering. It does not make life easy, but it makes you more whole. It does not turn you into a cold person. It turns you into someone less vulnerable to chaos. Keep this sentence. Inner peace is not when nothing affects you. It is when not everything that affects you gets to rule you. If this video spoke to you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments which of these 10 lessons you most need to practice right now. And let me prepare you for the next step, because recovering inner peace is essential. But after that, there is another very real battle that silently destroys many lives: procrastination. That is why the next recommended video is how to stop procrastinating even without motivation. And I would say this video is the perfect continuation of this one, because a mind without peace postpones out of confusion, but a mind that begins reorganizing itself needs to learn how to act even when motivation does not come. So finish this video, breathe, absorb it, and go straight to the next one, because understanding Stoicism is valuable, but starting to apply this lucidity in the way you live your days, that is when your life truly begins to change.